Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. Today I have a Mother's Day card that I made for my grandma, and I started out by taping a piece of white cardstock down, and I'm going to use this stencil. So I taped down my white piece of cardstock, and then on top of that I taped my stencil so that it wouldn't move around. I'm just going to be using one color of Distress Oxide ink. This is the fossilized amber, and what I did was I blended it pretty heavy in the upper corner, and I'm going to have it slowly get lighter as I go down. When I go over a stencil with a blending tool, I make sure that I'm very careful not to move the stencil. I mean, it's taped down, but it could still shift if I'm not careful. After all the blending was done, I removed the stencil, which is my favorite part. I love taking stencils off and seeing what the blending actually looks like, because you can see it, through the stencil, but you don't get the full effect until you take off the stencil. Next, I pulled out my Misty to do some stamping. I used my powder tool to prep this piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to stamp this butterfly image using Versamark ink. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but when I stamp this, the ink is not perfectly clear like it should be with Versamark ink. It's a little bit gray, and that's because I had just used this butterfly stamp to stamp in black, and I didn't clean it off well enough. But I was okay with it. I actually kind of liked that it was a little gray, so I just left it. So I heat embossed that in a clear embossing powder, and now I'm just going to do some really simple coloring with my Arteza markers. I started out with this pink color along the top of the wings, and then I'm going to use my Tim Holtz water brush to blend that down. I have a little clear block there with some water sprayed on it, and that's the water that I use for my water brush for the most part. And you might wonder, why am I using a water brush if I'm just dipping it anyways? And I don't really have an answer for that. This is just the way that I like to do it, so it works for me. I do still use the water that's in the brush, but I also use the water from the block. The next color I used was this orange color, and I just colored in the tips of the bottom wings, and then I blended it out towards the middle. I used a yellow color for the little inner section on the bottom of the wing. You can't tell because it's off camera, but in between the colors I do wipe my brush off on a paper towel so that I don't have the colors mixing together when I don't want them to. I worked a little bit on blending the pink and the orange together in the middle there, and then I moved on to the body. I used this really pretty purple color for the body, and I just drew it in on the bottom there and blended it up. And then for a final bit of color, I decided I wanted the tips of the wings to be a little bit darker, so I came in with this kind of maroon color and just went along the very top edge and blended that out. It's probably too difficult to see in the video, but the antennae are there. I mean, they're very, very light gray, and they're kind of hard to see in real life too, but I didn't mind so much. I kind of liked them that way, so I just left them that way. I could have cut them out and just had no antenna, or maybe drawn them in on the card, but I decided to just do it this way. I trimmed down the blended panel to card size, and I'm going to prep it for some heat embossing. So I'm going to use this stamp that says Grandma, and I put some Versamark ink on there, but before I stamped it I realized I forgot to use my powder tool, so I quickly went over the bottom with my powder, and then I stamped it. And I'm going to use some black embossing powder for this. The two sentiment stamps that I use for this card are both from the Lawn Fawn set Mom and Me. So here's the other stamp from the set that I'm going to use, and it says Happy Mother's Day. I'm going to be heat embossing this in black as well, right underneath that first stamp. I used my heat tool to emboss that, and then I'm going to move on to putting this card together. I used foam tape to adhere this panel to my card base. Once I got this adhered, I realized that the card base was slightly bigger than this panel, so I ended up having to take my scissors out and just cut right along the edge of the bottom so that the two pieces were flush. It's a pretty easy to fix problem. Now I'm going to work on adhering my butterfly. When I put this on, I'm going to use my Tombow glue, but I'm only going to put the glue right along the very middle of the butterfly because I kind of want this to be dimensional and I want the wings to be a little bit lifted up. While the glue on the butterfly was drying, I did my finishing touches. The first thing that I did was I took out this hot pink pen to do some dashed lines. Now this pen is just a Papermate pen. It's a felt tip pen that comes in a big pack with lots of colors in it. I'll link it in the description. For the sequins, I wanted them to kind of really flow with the butterfly. So I put a few of these sequins below the butterfly and a few above it, and they create this kind of path for your eyes to move along. I used my Tombow glue and my Silhouette Pick-Me-Up tool to adhere all of those down. So now this card is almost finished. For the final step, I really wanted to wait until the glue on the butterfly was completely dry. What I did was I cut two small pieces of foam tape, and I'm going to push those underneath the wings of the butterfly. This gives the butterfly a little bit more stability, and it helps to keep that dimension in the wings that I was looking for. And now this card is finished. Thank you for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this Mother's Day card. All of the supplies used for this video can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I will be back with another video on Friday. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.